This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 236 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. We're going to get to the show right off the bat. I have a great guest for you. We'll get to everything else later. Shout out to everyone that's in the chat and a part of the conversation today. Appreciate everyone for being a part of the show. But I got to bring on my guest right off the bat here. Sal Licata's making the rounds today. Host of the Sal Licata Show on YouTube and Baseball Night New York on SNY. You can follow him at Sal_Licata. Sal, how you doing, man? Your voice got to be a little bit tired now.
Oh, come on. What are you kidding me, Ann? I'm used to this. I'm sorry that it took us a while. I know we talked a while back. We tried to do it a couple weeks ago, I think, but we settled on tonight. I'm happy to be joined here with you.
It's always great to talk to you. It's nice to meet you at the QBC and get into a conversation with you to get this whole thing started. The New York Mets, they're getting ready for spring training. Actually, there's a whole bunch of guys down there ready. Most of the pitchers, Freddie Peralta, Nolan McLean, Clay Holmes, they've all are out there right now getting themselves ready. A little bit of news that we've heard over the past, I want to say 48 hours. I don't know how big of it is, maybe more rumor than anything, is this whole talk about will the Mets trade Brett Baty or Mark Vientos or not? There was a tweet yesterday from Andrew Filipponi on X, and I think he is on one of the radio stations out there in Pittsburgh. And the talk was that the Pirates have been engaged in talks with the Mets for a trade for either Brett Baty or Mark Vientos because they both can play third base. And the asking price seems to be high. Will Salmon actually last night on I think on Mets Hot Stove kind of talked about that there has been interest there, but nothing too serious when it comes to that. And the possibility of maybe bringing in another starting pitcher if some kind of trade was to happen here. You know, Brett Baty last season kind of was his best season out there, 254 batting average. He had 18 homers, 50 RBIs, and a 748 OPS. Mark Vientos, on the other hand, did not have that great of a season, kind of more of a sophomore slump. But even his worst season was kind of in line with where Brett Baty was, 233, 17 homers, and 61 RBIs. Are you trying to trade Baty or Vientos here, or do you see value in these guys being in this roster to start the season?
Well, let's think about this. Use some common sense. Why would they trade Brett Baty right now, and for what? Unless it's a big like they're not getting a big time pitcher from Pittsburgh. It could be a young, controllable starter. In that case, would you be more open to it? Maybe. And then what you would do is trade from, let's say, trade from your rotation, maybe Peterson, and then try to replace Brett Baty. That's a lot to ask a week, out of spring training here. And when pitchers and catchers report, everybody's going to be reporting soon. You mentioned players are down there early. There's a month to the start of the season, basically. So I don't know if those moves are realistic right now. I don't believe the Mets are looking to trade Brett Baty. Vientos may be a different story for the right deal, but I don't see the value being there. And it's certainly with the Pirates, I don't see the value being there for the Mets. I think there's too many moving parts. That means it likely won't happen before the season. And I'd rather than just hold on to those guys and see what they can do in both cases with Baty and Vientos in their lineup.
Anyone from the, like, if there was, let's say, something in line here when it comes to starting pitchers, is there anyone outside of Paul Skeens? Because that's, like, let's be real, that's a lot of prospects that would have to go that way. Anyone in that rotation at Pittsburgh that catches your eye? Like, there's Mitch Keller's in there. There's a lot of young guys.
Yeah, there was another young guy. Somebody brought up that I think it was talking to Will about this before. Somebody brought up a name. I don't even know the name, honestly. So no, catching my eye, no. But we trust David Stearns, right? So let's say that there's a young, controllable starter in Pittsburgh that he identifies as somebody that he can put into that rotation and raise the floor in the rotation. So you trade Baty or Vientos for him, and then you trade Peterson to raise the floor from where Baty or Vientos was. So, but that's a lot of moving parts there. So I don't know. There's nobody, Ant, that I look at the Pirates and say, yeah, go get me that guy. I sit back from afar and say, Baty's going to be an integral piece of this Mets team, whether you like it or not. right now is currently constructed going into 2026. Vientos a little less, but also he's under control. He's cheap. He's got potential. In a bad year, he was awful last year. He had 17 homers. They might need to play some first base, might need him DH a little bit. And you could do a lot worse than Vientos' bat as a platoon player at first base and DH. So I wouldn't be looking to make those moves if I'm the Mets right now. But if Stearns decides otherwise, I'll trust him.
Yeah, especially after trading Jeff McNeil, who kind of was the versatility guy. Brett Baty is going to play that role. Mark Vientos is kind of the role of the DH and, like you said, first baseman. So it'd be hard to kind of part ways with them. Another guy that was being talked about was Ty France. There may be a little bit of interest in him. Chris Cotillo, who's the Red Sox beat reporter, was talking about this for MassLive.com. And, last season for Ty France, he played first, he played second, he could play third base. He batted .257, had 7 homers and 52 RBIs in 138 games between Minnesota and Toronto. Now, last season, the majority was played at first base. He had a .996 fielding percentage. Is this a move you can get behind as somewhat of an insurance for Jorge Polanco, or do you think this will be, more of an easy transition enough for Polanco to play first, as we talked about, having Baty and Vientos along the way?
I think it's funny how many Met fans seem to give a crap about Ty France. What are we talking about here? Come on. If they got him, okay, fine. If they don't, okay, fine. Like, their season's not going to hint. The Mets team is basically built. We're going into spring training. This is pretty much what the team's going to look like. If guys don't get the job done in April or May, they're going to add other players who will, and that includes Polanco. So let's say Polanco can't play first base and Vientos isn't cutting it. Guess what? They're going to go get a first baseman to make their team better. So, I guess to answer your question is I trust that Polanco is going to be more than serviceable at first base. I think he's an upgrade defensively over Pete Alonso because Pete Alonso couldn't throw the ball. I bet that Polanco is going to be able to do that. I was talking to some people actually at Alex Rodriguez's Christmas party. It was at his holiday party, whatever. His cousin used to work with Polanco a lot on footwork and things like that. I forget where he was saying. I don't know, it was the minor leagues or something like that, or they remember Polanco when he was a young kid. He says footwork not going to be a problem with him. I'm going to take his word for it and assume that Polanco is an athletic big leaguer, and it shouldn't be that big of a deal to play first base. Is it going to be Keith Hernandez? No, but I think he'll be serviceable. And like I said, more importantly, and if not, they'll find somebody else.
Yeah, all he really has to do is just make that toss over to first base.
Yeah,
and throw it home.
Kill Senga.
Hopefully, not hurting anyone. So that's the big thing here. I wanted to do a little exercise here with you because I want to do a little early predictions here of what this lineup's going to look like, the bench, the rotation, bullpen. I know we kind of know what the lineup is going to be, but how would you order them? If you were, Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns.
The lineup you want first?
Yeah, we'll go with the lineup first.
Okay.
We kind of know who's going to be in the lineup. That's probably the biggest given at this point, except for maybe one spot.
I would go Lindor, Bichette, Soto. I think that, and I know he's not going to do that. He alluded to going Lindor, Soto, Bichette.
Yeah.
I would go the other way. And I would bet at some point, he changed that lineup a million times last year. I would bet at some point they're going to flip Bichette. And now the one thing is if Soto doesn't want to move from the 2-hole, he moved last year. So I would ask him, Soto's a legit power bat. He's got to hit to me third. I need that power bat. He's the one legitimate power bat in their lineup. Everybody else can hit 20 homers. He's the one legitimate guy that's going to hit 40-plus home runs. So I'd rather have Lindor, Bichette, Soto. And then I guess behind that, probably Polanco would be 4. Let's see, where are we at here? Simeon down in the order, Alvarez a little bit lower in the order. Baty, maybe if you want to go lefty, righty, balance. I really don't think it matters, and I haven't drawn up the full lineup. I think I did this once before. I think the most important thing is those first 3, and then which of the other balanced bats are you going to have behind him? Obviously, Ben's going to be at the bottom. You're not going to have Alvarez to start the year high up in that order. Maybe talking about 6th. Maybe Baty's the 5 hitter on this team. So I'd probably say Polanco 4, maybe Baty, Alvarez, depending on lefty righty, 5, 6. Robert down in the order. And who am I missing? Am I missing anybody here? Benj, we said bottom of the order.
We said Benj.
Simeon.
Luis Robert. Did we say Luis Robert?
Yeah, Robert, bottom of the order. Maybe Simeon, a 5 or 6 hitter. And to me, all those guys, outside of Benj, who I would probably have hit 8th or 9th because I don't want to put any pressure on him. Outside of him, all the other guys could either be matchup dependent. Let's say Benj 9, Robert 8. 5, 6, 7. Alvarez, Baty / Vientos, Simeon. I mean, does it really matter which one hits where? To me, they're all kind of similar guys. They have guys with potential, guys that get it with pop, guys going to put the bat on the ball. So I'm okay with that. I don't think outside of the first 3 in the order, to me, it really is irrelevant. And even with the first 3, you could have Bichette hit 3rd if you want, that they want. I would rather have him hit 2nd, but I'm okay with it. I think the lineup is good. I think it's deep and balanced. There's really no clear going into the year, no clear holes or weaknesses or easy outs in that lineup, at least on paper going in.
I definitely have to agree with you with Juan Soto. I think he should be batting 3rd. I mean, that he gave us his best time at the 3rd spot in the lineup. He struggled in the 2 spot to start the season. They put him in 3rd, and he was kind of a different player there. So I feel like he should be your 3rd place hitter.
Everybody keeps saying, well, no, Bichette's a clutch hitter. Oh, yeah, I get that. Okay, well, let him drive in Lindor or the people in the bottom of the order that are on base. The answer shouldn't be, well, I want Bichette to hit behind Soto because Soto walks a lot. Yeah, that's great. He also hits a lot of home runs. I want Soto, and he's getting a lot more 3-run homers this year than he did a year ago. I want Soto to come up with Lindor and Bichette on base and have the pitcher have to pitch to Soto. That's what I want. It's almost as important, the guys in front of you as opposed to the guys behind you in that lineup. So Mendy said Lindor, Soto, Bichette. That's what he's thinking. I'm thinking Lindor, Bichette, Soto.
Yeah, I think at some point it's going to change. Theirs has not been a set lineup to me since the 2006 Mets. Where you really knew where everyone was going to bat. You weren't moving them around. It was Reyes at the top, LaDuca 2nd, Beltran 3rd, Delgado 4, right 5, and you never messed with that. Yeah. But nowadays, it's just they're always flip-flopping people out of the lineup. Sometimes the power hitters, too, as we see with Aaron Judge. He bats 2nd sometimes. So
3rd, right, exactly.
3rd,
right.
They switch him around. I think he's let off a couple times, too. There's always a change in the lineup. You mentioned Carson Benj. So I'm under the assumption that you think that he's going to be on this opening day roster to start the season.
He's going to get an opportunity to, and I love that. The way that it's structured for the Mets, giving a young guy, in this case Benj, an opportunity to make the team and balance things out and try to develop him the right way, not like Michael Conforto in 2015 where we're trying to rush him up here as a savior. They're not looking to the minor league saying, we don't have enough, we need Benj to be a star. They're looking at it saying, he's going to be the 8th or 9th hitter, play left field, we're loaded everywhere else, and we're going to try to develop him and ease him in. So I don't know what to expect, honestly. I don't know how you can watch him in the minors. Does it really mean anything? I have no idea what to expect other than I'm excited the way the Mets are doing this. And if he wins the job out of spring, then he's got to prove that he can stick in the big leagues. Because if he doesn't, they're not going to do what the Yankees have done with Dominguez and Volpe. They're going to send him down, which would be the right thing. If you can't make it at the majors, go to the minors. That's what the minor leagues is for. So I'm excited for it, but I don't know how it's going to work out. I have no idea.
Yeah, Christopher Cancel saying Benj is a question mark. Why does everyone trust him? I don't know if everyone trusts him. I think it's just the fact that David Stearns, ever since the end of the season, I mean, he was the one prospect that was mentioned throughout the whole offseason. So I thought, well, maybe it was to increase his trade value. But he really does seem to, especially with the trading of Jet Williams, he really does seem to believe in Carson Benj.
Well, when the guy says trust, why does everyone trust Benj? First of all, the Mets, it's David Stearns' job to identify the young guys that he wants to give an opportunity to. But where are you getting trust from? He's going to be the 8th or 9th hitter. If he wins the job out of spring. It's not trust. It's they believe in Benj. Stearns believes in Benj, and the front office believes in Benj. They're going to give him an opportunity. He's either going to succeed in that opportunity or fail. And if he fails, guess what? They're going to find somebody else, whether it's Baty, Taylor, another outfielder. Like, it's not about, oh, trusting Benj is going to torpedo the season. This is actually the perfect way to do it, where even if he's not good, it's not going to impact the team in a negative way. It can only enhance the team if he's very good. So it's not like blindly trusting him and it's going to ruin the Mets season. I don't get that.
Yeah, and he's not being asked to be like the savior or the main component of this team. They already got that in the top 4 or 5 batters in the lineup. Probably even have, more of that in Luis Robert Jr. Another player on that roster, Francisco Alvarez, who had a pretty decent second half to the season. Maybe it's time for him probably to have a little bit of pressure on to step up and be the player that we kind of thought he was going to be when he was the number 1 overall prospect in baseball.
I think it's about time Alvarez reaches his potential. I've said on SNY, probably on the Fan, like, oh, this is going to be the year for Alvarez because I believe in his attitude and his mindset. Alvarez, to me, has the right intangibles. He's a passionate player, fiery guy's heart's in the right place. He calls a good game. He gives effort defensively. He's got the power bat, a big threat. You've seen the fire and passion when he hits a big homer. Problem is he hasn't delivered nearly enough. And you want to talk about unlucky injuries, whatever it may be, no more excuses. Like, at some point, guy was a top prospect in baseball. At some point, he's actually going to have to be a top big league catcher. He hasn't been that. I'm not going to have the highest of expectations anymore because I've done that the last couple of years. He's disappointed. But I like, for me, it's got to be now or never for Francisco Alvarez.
I was looking at the stats the other day when actually I was on with Hector from Washington Heights, and we were putting together the lineups.
Yeah, he loved you. He was
Hector's great. I love Hector.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were doing a lineup on his show, and me and him both agree that maybe when it's the righty lefty switch off, that maybe Mark Vientos should be the one batting cleanup. Obviously, because he's a DH, but 2, like last season, or throughout his career, he's probably hit best hitting in that 4 spot. And I think that power spot's probably perfect for him.
Wouldn't be opposed to that because I don't think there's a clear-cut guy to do that. Like I said, all those guys, Polanco's probably the favorite to do that. But if Vientos got an opportunity early on, let's say out of the 5 or 6 hole, and he's hitting, I could see how he can move his way up. But I got to stop you. Did you say Hector has a show?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Hector on Washington Heights, he does a show?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
I want to talk about let me talk about the bench with you. I feel like this is pretty simple. We just mentioned Mark Vientos already, so I'm going to throw him in there as well as Tyrone Taylor and Luis Torrens, because those guys are going to be at least the 3 parts of that bench. They'll probably have one more spot, but I don't know who you add here. Names that were being thrown across were Ronnie Mauricio, but obviously Ronnie Mauricio has one more option. And I would assume that he would start down in AAA, but there's Austin Barnes, who's another catcher. I couldn't see them carrying 3 catchers: Hayden Sanger, Jared Young, Christian Pache. I mean, I don't even know where they go when it comes to the bench, or if they decide to add someone else to the bench from the outside.
I like the idea of carrying 3 catchers. Can you guess why?
Extra innings?
No. Because maybe you could have Alvarez DH. See, if you have, and that's a way to keep him maybe fresher and keep his bat in the lineup. Like, I like Alvarez calling a game, but I want to keep him healthy, and I want to keep his bat in the lineup. He could be a cleanup hitter. I mean, if he does what he's expected to do, he could be a cleanup hitter, a legitimate power bat. So, and then I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, well, they can't have him DH a lot because if he's the backup catcher, on a day where you start Torrens and you have Alvarez at DH, then what? Like, if something goes wrong. So I wouldn't be opposed. I don't know if they're going to do it. I wouldn't be opposed to having a third catcher, especially if there's no clear-cut option or clear need if you have enough versatile pieces on that roster.
Well, Austin Barnes, he's that. I would pick Austin Barnes over Hayden Sanger. He's that, veteran backstop, been in that Dodger organization, winning player. So if I was to put anyone, I probably would put him. You sold me on the 3 catchers.
That's all it took. That was easy, Ant.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what else do we have to lose?
Yeah,
with the lineup we have.
If the idea is you're not probably going to use the third catcher a lot, so why would you then waste a roster spot with him.
Yeah.
But if it means getting out, like who else is getting those at bats? Now, they might, maybe they bring back Marte, maybe they had another outfielder that maybe that changes the looks of things. I think they're pretty much loaded on the infield there, and they have versatility where you have multiple. You have guys off the bench that can play multiple positions, and that's what you want. So you don't need to waste roster spots with guys who could only do one thing, whether it's just DH, like they
Yeah.
did with Vogelback, or like the
Uh,
Yankees do with Stan. That's a waste of a roster spot in today's baseball, modern baseball.
Yeah, and Stearns love versatility, and most of
Yeah.
these guys that he's bringing in are versatile. Jorge Polanco, Bo Bichette. So that's going to be pretty big for this team moving forward. Let's move to the rotation. There's 6 guys at this moment in time: Freddie Peralta, Nolan McLean, Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea, Kodai Senga, David Peterson. Do you go with a 6-man rotation? I know the Mets have talked about this for years and years and years, and it never seems to ever kind of work out. But do you go with the 6-man here to start the year off, or do you just leave it at 5? I know that in the beginning of the season, there's like the scheduling where sometimes they can go with just 4.
Right.
But considering, Kodai Senga and his needs and some of these guys coming off an injury, there's always the concern.
No, I'm a 5-man rotation guy. I want my best pitchers pitching more often. If I don't care that Kodai Senga wants the extra rest, then he shouldn't be in the rotation. So that's a Senga problem, and that's the Mets' fault for bringing him in there. So he's got to figure that out. I'm not saying I would never do it if you want to give guys a rest one time through the rotation,
Yeah.
bring up a spot starter or whatever, have somebody else take a start and then get back on rotation. But I want Peralta and McLean to take as many starts as possible. I don't see how starting the 6th guy in a 6-man rotation as much as starting the 1st or 2nd guy makes any sense. There's a reason why there was a 5-man rotation. So I know the game has changed. I know you want to keep guys healthy. If you could prove to me that a 6-man rotation, A, keeps guys healthier, and B, is more effective than a 5-man rotation, sign me up for the 6-man rotation. But you have to prove that to me, and nobody can do that.
So who are your 5 then? Obviously, we have Freddie Peralta, Nolan McLean. Those are going to be the 2 to start it off.
Holmes,
You got
Manaea, and probably Peterson.
Now, I saw you on SNY last night talk about Clay Holmes, and I agree with you. Last season he was good, but we need length from him this season. If he doesn't give us length, do you start to consider putting him in the bullpen?
No, I would not put Clay Holmes in the bullpen. I think he was their best starter last year. He was the most consistent. He didn't give him a length, but he was the most consistent starter. Senga was great in the first half. He went down, can't trust him. The more we talk about this, Ant, maybe there is something to the Mets trying to add a starter, a younger starter that maybe has options. I'm not sure what the options are. Can they, I guess they can send Senga down. He's got to approve it. But, they're in a tough predicament where they have guys who can be decent back end of the rotation starters, also very good insurance starters, but they got to pick their 5 best pitchers if they're going with a 5-man rotation. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen here. Obviously, we got to get into spring training and see what Mendy says and see how everybody's looking and see the health. Usually these things work themselves out, unfortunately, over the course of spring. But if I would start the 5 best guys, and I would imagine that that's going to be Peralta, McLean, Holmes, probably Manaea, and then for me, it's a toss-up between Peterson and Senga, whoever earns that 5th spot in the spring. And if you don't like it, tough. You're going to have to go down to the minor leagues or potentially out of the bullpen.
Yeah, and, other names to throw out there. Tobias Myers, obviously he's going to be in the bullpen, but he could start here and there. Jonah Tong is going to need some time in the minors. Christian Scott, he's kind of like the forgotten man since having the Tommy John surgery, and kind of with the emergence of these other top pitching prospects. His journey this season is going to be pretty interesting. What are your thoughts on Christian Scott?
I like Christian Scott, and I'm sure we'll see him at some point, and I'm excited to see him, what he could do. But think about how much crap would have to go wrong for him to be an integral part of the rotation, right? The Mets they have depth. They don't really need another starter. What they would need to do is upgrade the talent at the top of the rotation, and then push other guys back. Like right now, I think Holmes is their 3rd best starter. Maybe some want to argue Manaea, potentially, I guess he could be, or maybe Peterson, who was an all-star a year ago. So I don't think they just need another arm. I think they need more of a known commodity at the top of the rotation and then can push everybody back. So to answer your question about Scott, I'm curious to see what he could do. But I think if we see Christian Scott taking a lot of big league starts this year, the Mets are in trouble.
Yeah, a lot of injuries would take
Yeah.
place. So he'll probably be doing the AAA run. It sucks for him. He kind of had that kind of Mauricio thing where he came up, got opportunity to play, gets hurt, and now he's got to start all over again. And there's possibly players ready to jump him on the in the prospect pool here. Let's go to the bullpen. Obviously, Devin Williams, the new closer of the New York Mets, replacing Edwin Diaz, and as well as Luke Weaver here. Are you confident in this 1-2 punch of these two guys replacing Edwin Diaz?
Yes, and Brooks Raley, I like him as well. I want more arms back there. I think the Mets pen is deeper than it was a year ago, certainly going into the season. I wouldn't be shocked if the Mets added a big-time bullpen arm at some point in the season ahead of the trade deadline, depending on what Devin Williams does. But I still, it doesn't hurt to add another legitimate power arm out of that pen. I expect a monster bounce-back season from Devin Williams. I thought what he did a year ago was the aberration. The first half of the season with the Yankees, last 19 games or so, it was on par with what he did the majority of his career with the Brewers. So I think no matter what, whatever the numbers are, Williams is going to be one of the better closers in the game. You add Raley, you bring back Raley, you add Luke Weaver to the bullpen. I think that's 3 solid arms. I always used to want to build the triangle of trust in the back of the bullpen.
Yeah.
Now it's gotten to the point where teams are so reliant on bullpens, you want the square back there. But at least to start, the Mets have the triangle with Williams, Weaver, and Raley, and we'll see if they can make that a square at some point by adding another trusted arm.
Well, maybe it starts off with a guy like Tobias Myers, who could play that Trevor Williams type role.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine with that. The bullpens are the thing that are the most difficult to predict going in, which is why it would be the least thing that I'd want to address in the offseason. But I've seen it many times before with many teams, but specifically the Mets, trying to bring in bullpen arms and thinking, okay, well, now it's fixed. And then those guys suck this year going into the bullpen. The one that comes to mind is 2009 when they added J.J. Putz and was it K-Rod? J.J. Putz and K-Rod, first year at Citi Field. The one thing they needed in 2008 was closers. Omar goes out there in 2009, gets those two guys, and then it didn't work. It doesn't work like that. So bullpens are fickle year to year. It's why I like taking a shot on Williams off of a down year and expecting that he's going to level out and be more what he was the majority of his career. So if it doesn't go well with some of those guys, they're going to try other arms out. They'll figure out a way to – you could build a good bullpen in season.
Yeah, and he'll have that taxi cab lineup getting ready to come up and down. I just threw Luis Garcia in there that they signed for about $1 million. Even Craig Kimbrell, I mean, it is what it is with him. But, I mean, he's got the resume of a decent pitcher. He's not going to be asked to close. They could throw him at somewhere. I think at some point we see him. A.J. Minter is going to be coming back probably a month into the season.
Right.
They signed this.
Minter's a good trusted arm. Kimbrell, Kimbrell, I think, is washed up. I think he's toast. But anyway, they're taking flyers on guys. Can't hurt.
No. They had this guy that they signed last year who had Tommy John surgery, Adbert Alzolay, who they got from Chicago. He was the closer in Chicago before he got injured. He's another guy that's coming back that's going to be healthy. There's even a couple of kids, Dylan Ross, Jonathan Pintaro, Ryan Lambert. There's some of these prospects that could possibly come up. So I think that like you said, the bullpen seems to be in better shape. I know it's not Edwin Diaz, but you got to get to the right. You got to get to Edwin Diaz, like you said, that square that the Mets need. It seems like maybe they could build that off of these guys that they have right now. Yeah,
I mean, if they had brought Diaz back, and I think that was the goal, I think people would be talking about them having the best bullpen in baseball, or at least one of the best bullpens in baseball. So that didn't happen. I think it's still a good bullpen, but they could always upgrade and still make it the best bullpen in baseball. I'm glad you go back to this because I couldn't see shit. I forgot my glasses inside. I couldn't see any of that screen on the graph.
I tried my best to get the names out there, but I also have a big screen right behind my laptop there. But before I let you go, because I know you got to get going here, real quick, Carlos Beltran gets to wear the Mets cap into the Hall of Fame. We know his credentials with the Mets and in baseball. How should Met fans choose to remember Carlos Beltran? One, does he deserve to have his number retired? I know because he's the third Met to ever be inducted into the Hall of Fame, everyone thinks that automatically he should have his number retired. And, where does he rank among Mets of all time for you?
I've always said that Beltran was the most underrated and underappreciated Met of all time. It's weird, though, when you think about the entire history of the franchise, to have Seaver, Piazza, and Beltran now as the only three Mets in the Hall of Fame, or the only three, people to wear a Mets hat on their plaque in the Hall of Fame. I'm not minimizing Beltran, and maybe it's because he came as I was older as a fan a little bit. I always liked him, Beltran, and did think he was underappreciated and underrated. But do I put him in the same category in the history of the Mets with Seaver and Piazza? I don't, but he is. He is now. So, yeah, I would have his number retired. And I do think that Met fans should appreciate him as one of the greatest players to ever wear a Mets uniform. I mean, when we talk about Strawberry, you talk about Piazza, David Wright, whatever, Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter, Beltran's among them, and probably better than a lot of those guys. So I think he's as great a Met as there's ever been, but there's still a disconnect to me as a Mets fan when you think about Seaver and what he meant, Piazza and what he meant, to Beltran being the third guy in there. And eventually they're going to be joined by probably Lindor and Soto as well, so it won't just be those three, but it's just weird to have it go from Seaver and Piazza to now Beltran being that guy as opposed to, let's say, David Wright.
Does that strike three in 2007, did that stay in your mind like it does for a lot of Met fans?
How could it not? I mean, I was at the game. I remember hearing the Cardinals celebrate from the upper level at Shea Stadium. So it's unfortunately his most memorable moment. It's not the best one, but it's the first one that everybody thinks about. He had great moments with the Mets. It's the first one that everybody thinks about. It was his most memorable moment, unfortunately. Hard to forget that if you lived through it, if you were there, if you watched it, and it was such a big spot. The Mets should have won the World Series that year. I'm not blaming it on him, but that series they should have won, and they would have won the World Series. It would have been on the 20-year anniversary, and here we are 20 years later on the 40th anniversary now of 1986. So that was a disappointing ending to a very disappointing series that he'll always be recognized, or synonymous with that moment.
Sal, I can't thank you enough for joining me. Let everyone know what you got coming up, what you got going on. I know the Super Bowl's this weekend, and are you going down spring training at all?
Well, I don't know if you know this. I got fired from my job, so I'm kind of. No.
I'm trying to look at the positives with you, Sal. I mean,
no, me too.
You got the great YouTube channel coming out. You're on SNY.
Yes. Who's to say that can't be a positive? You got to turn it into a positive. So I was just joking around. So yes, Sal Licata Show. You can get it every weekday. Podcast, YouTube, download, rate, subscribe. We appreciate the support. SNY Baseball Night in New York. I'll be on Sports Night tonight at 11, so I do that a couple of nights a week as well. I will be going to spring training. I think I'm going to go mid-March. I'm going to go for a day. I'm going to try to do a trip, do some podcast content, do a little Yankee, one day with the Yankees, one day with the Mets. So looking forward to that. Are you going down there at all?
I will not be down there this year. Maybe next year I'll get out there. I got a
Have
little.
You ever been?
I have not been yet.
You got to go. I did it in 2022. I did it years ago with Francesa, which was great. And then I did it on my own in 2022. I highly recommend it for any fan. If you could take the time, even to just go for a couple of days, it's a must do before the season, at least once in your life.
I appreciate you so much, Sal, for doing this with me. Quickly for you, what did you think of Royal Rumble? I know you were talking about that on the podcast.
I didn't love it. I thought the women's match was probably a little bit better than the guys' match. I like that Roman Reigns won. That was cool. I love that one girl in it. She didn't win, but she was great in it.
Sol Ruca.
Yes, Sol Ruca. She reminds me of Lita. She is fantastic.
Yes.
So there was some good moments. I think it was entertaining. Was it the best Rumble I've ever seen? No, but I'll pay a little more attention here on the road to WrestleMania. Did you like it?
I'm like you. I thought it was okay. I think the women's are a little better than the men's one. Not too many surprises, which I'm okay with as long as they have a good roster that's in there. I think it's just the crowd. The crowd just like
Yeah.
You feed off of the crowd. Like if it's in Madison Square Garden or something, it gets the crowd going. I think that the crowd was just, they were okay.
Yeah. I'm looking
So.
forward to my guy Seth Rollins returning. That's my guy now. He's my favorite.
Yeah. And check out Sal's interview with Seth Rollins on the Salicata show. Sal, appreciate you. We got to do this again soon and have you back on. I appreciate you, man.
Will do. Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me. Enjoyed it.
All right, Salicata. Catch him on YouTube. Subscribe to his channel on the YouTube, as well as follow him at Sal_Licata. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of the show. Really appreciate everyone being a part of this. We have over 200 people in here. Got Dodgers fans in here as well, and I think we got Yankees fans in here. So, hey, man, if we're catching along with everybody, that's awesome. A few quick notes here before we wrap up the show. The WBC, the Mets who are in the WBC, there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Mets that are in there. Nolan McLean and Clay Holmes, most notable for Team USA. Obviously, Juan Soto for the Dominican Republic. Got Huáscar Brazaban as well for Dominican Republic. Mark Vientos will play for Nicaragua. Robert Stock, Israel. Alex Carrillo, Mexico. Nick Morbido, Italy. Jared Young, Canada. Francisco Lindor will not be in the WBC. He will not be playing for Puerto Rico, as there was insurance issues following an elbow procedure, so he is out. I know some fans like the WBC like myself, some fans don't, and that is okay. But if you do, I have some content coming for you next week and during the WBC as well. So check that out later on. But appreciate everyone for being a part of the Subway to Shea podcast. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Support the Subway to Shea podcast with super chats, super stickers, and super thanks, which are also available on YouTube. Let me get to this one. A Green Machine real quick saying bring back Starling Marte for that last bench spot. But I feel like that would be such a last minute move that the Mets would make if they do decide. But if I bring up that chart again that I had here, and maybe it's even hard for me to see it, so I apologize for that. I should have had it more in bold or made the screen a little bit bigger. I got to figure out how to do that. I'm just learning how to share pages on here. So I don't know where you put him in taking out a relief pitcher and putting him, or not carrying the third catcher. Maybe Starling Marte goes down there, but I'm not too sure where Starling Marte fits on this team, because they already have a designated DH now in Mark Vientos. Maybe he gets traded. I don't know. I just don't know how they will figure that out. But we'll see as this week's keep going, how the Mets set their team. We already know that some of these guys are out there right now at spring training. We've seen Nolan McLean. We've seen Clay Holmes. We've seen Freddie Peralta, who also is not going to be a part of the WBC. He's out there as well pitching. I think Nolan McLean was throwing to Carson Bench. So Carson Bench is down there. Jonah Tong, we've heard from. So most of the Mets pitchers are already out in spring training a week earlier. My hope is to get Keith Rad on the show, the Mets radio broadcaster. We always do a show right before the Mets head out and the official start of spring training begins. So we'll try to get him on, and eventually I will, like Sal said, I will have to get out there for spring training at some point, and maybe do a show down there in Port St. Lucie. That wraps it up, guys, for the Subway to Shea podcast. I appreciate you for being a part of the show. Like I said, please make sure if you like the video, press that button on the like, press the subscribe button, and be a part of this show, and share it with your friends that are Met fans, even if you're not Met fans. I had a Yankee fan in here. Where's the Yankee fan? Yankees girl 161. Go Yankees. I had her in there. I had Dodgers in here. Let's go Dodgers. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're a fan of. As long as you're respectful in the chat, that's all that matters to me. We'll have more on the Mets and spring training in our next episode. There won't be one on Sunday. There won't be one on Super Bowl Sunday. So maybe Monday, maybe Wednesday night, we'll do another episode and then get back to doing our 10 a.m. shows. But there really wasn't much news. I mean, when we're talking about Ty France and possibly trading Brett Baty and Mark Vientos to the Pittsburgh Pirates, you know that there's not that much to talk about, but it was great to have Sal on and get his thoughts and opinions on all the things New York Mets. Like I said, follow on X, Instagram, TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you prefer to listen to the show. But if you want to be a part of the chat, you want to be a part of the conversation, you are doing that here on YouTube. You can also watch on X, but I prefer you guys here on YouTube. It's a lot more fun to do it here on YouTube. So make sure you're being a part of that. But for Anthony Rivera, this has been the Subway to Shea podcast. And always remember, let's go Mets.